Welcome back, everyone. Suddenly, it's a new week and a new session. It's fascinating how the the weeks just seem to rush on by. But let's start, like usually, with some just bringing our attention into this precious present moment. And I like the way the Buddhist master Thich Nhat Hanh puts it. He talks a lot about coming home. So coming home to yourself. We're always running about, both literally and metaphorically, but just bringing our attention, our awareness back to ourselves is very healing in itself. So let's start there. So just becoming aware of what it's like being you. This is it. This is your experience, your mind, your body. And this is what we have. And it's not too bad. Just being a human being with all the wonderful causes and conditions that's come together, allowing us to practice Dharma, to observe our own minds, to come together in an effort to cultivate clarity and wisdom, compassion. That's pretty amazing, actually. So just bringing your full attention to your own experience, your experience of being embodied, your experience of being aware and conscious. This great magical mystery. And perhaps you can bring to mind someone that, like the teacher or the mentor, the guru or the spiritual guide who um, first inspired you to um, become interested in the Dharma, in the mind, and in the cultivation of inner qualities. So bring to mind your teacher or teachers, maybe, just the qualities that they embody, the way they interact with others, the qualities with which they seem so ripe, and the awesome inspiration that flows from that. Bring to mind the gratitude of having teachers and mentors like that, having met them, having received teachings from them. And just allow this wish, this intention for those very same qualities to arise within your own mind stream, within your own heart. This is the purpose of practice. So we can see that the full potential of being human, as it's exemplified and manifested in those great examples like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, many, many others. So let's be inspired by that and cultivate this wish to become like that for the benefit of ourselves, you know, for the benefit of our own lasting happiness and joy and contentment, and then also um, for us to be able to share that with others, to be that kind of inspiration potentially to others, to be of service to others, to guide others, help them suffer less and become happier, help them live with more ease and contentment and joy. This is why we practice. Then just paying full attention to a few in and out breaths, releasing everything and just resting. Okay. Um, and with that, we can get on with today's session, which is so to recap in the two sessions that we've had so far, um, we've been talking about shamatha meditation, calm abiding, and I've been doing that to a large extent by emphasizing three qualities. And the first thing we did was emphasizing relaxation. Um, and we used as the object of our meditation, we used the full body breathing. And we uh, emphasized relaxing and releasing on the out breath and just cultivating and deepening that sense of ease and relaxation and letting go. Um, and then we moved on from that to um, looking more specifically at stability or focus. So for that meditation, we used movements of the breath in the abdomen. So that's it's good for stability and focus because we're like moving our attention down in the body and we can really in that area it's usually easy to connect with a sense of like solidity and firmness and stability, the sense of being like really rooted. So we used the sensations of the breath as we experience them in the abdomen, the belly, rising and falling and so on. So and then we also added this helpful tool or technique, if you want to call it that, of counting, either counting or noting the breath as a way of like cutting those distractions and those like trains of thoughts and association that we often get caught up in, that mental proliferation that is um, so common, and that's in a sense the opposite of a stable focused attention. So we use the counting as a help to stay to stay with that stability and focus. And then we moved on to the clarity aspect. And the meditation we did was noticing the sensation of the breath now instead at the nostrils. So we're like focusing in on a smaller area. It takes a bit more effort in a sense to stay aware of sensations that are a bit more subtle and not so strong. And we also there we talked about this like biofeedback mechanism of as as we get more relaxed and more focused, then our breath tends to doesn't necessarily have to, but it tends to become a bit more subtle, uh, almost to the point sometimes where you can hardly detect it at all, which requires us to be have more of that clarity. And then if we lose it, then our breath kind of tends to get um, stronger or more detectable. So there's like this nice feedback loop that helps us deepen our practice in the sense of clarity. And yeah, I mentioned several times that on the basis of relaxation, that's how we establish stability. And on the basis of that stability, that's how we establish vividness or clarity and so on. But actually, it works also the other way around. So uh, the more clarity and vividness we have, the more we can uh, correctly with introspection monitor our focus and stability. And then the more focused and stable our attention gets, the more that actually also feeds back into to relaxation and ease and letting go. For example, because just the simple fact that we're not being as tormented by our thoughts anymore. So, which is the main reason why we're not relaxed in the first place, because we're always agitated and thinking and worried and anxious. Very hard to be relaxed when we're assaulted by these thoughts all the time. So, as we develop more focus, more stability, and those thoughts can kind of, at least temporarily, fade into the background and settle down a bit. That feeds right back into relaxation. So it goes both ways. Relaxation leading to stability, leading to clarity, but it's also clarity leading to focus and stability leading to relaxation. So you have like a bottom up and top down effect happening, I guess you could say. Um, yeah, so but we have so far we have been using the body or specifically the breath as the object of our focus, the object of our attention, the object of our shamatha practice. But today we'll move on to another type of object. So the same principles of shamatha still remain exactly the same. It's just now we've been using the breath, but now the object will be instead our minds, or more specifically, the content of our minds. So the broad category would be just you just call them thoughts, but it's everything that arises in the mind. It's impulses and memories and mental images and um, yeah, just everything that arises in this space of awareness. And sometimes, yeah, that distinction is made between uh, mind or sem in Tibetan, which is more the content, the objects of the objects of which we are aware in the mind. So on one hand, and then awareness itself, the Tibetan word there being rigpa. Uh, so separating mind from awareness and what we're taking as our object now is the mind. So all the activities that take place in consciousness is like this space of awareness or whatever metaphor you want to use. And then the next session, we will actually take awareness itself as the object. So that's where we're going. And yeah, I find it's really I work as a psychologist as well as meditation teacher, and one of the things that I maybe do as a psychologist that might be uncommon, especially, I mean, there are different types of psychology, but I'm not necessarily that interested in the content of my clients' stories. So everyone that comes to a psychologist is very interested in their stories because that's what they identify as the root of the problems. You know, this happened, they said that, blah blah blah. Or maybe something actually really terrible happened to you, and um, and as a psychologist, of course, I would listen to people share that story, but then rather than try to understand or fix or manipulate or change or reassess or all the things you can do with a story, my first thing to teach clients would rather be to take a step back and observe that story as a story, to observe their own thoughts as thoughts, to observe their own emotions as emotions. Because as long as we're completely identified with in using a psychology term, fused with those stories that we're telling ourselves, then we have very little freedom, and the solution we usually go to is just try to fix the story or solve the story like it was like an equation that if we just balance everything right, then now we would be happy. But I find that the most fundamental and important skill is actually to start to be able to disengage from the story and just watch it for what it actually is. And I don't know, at least just looking at my own experience, 99% of my thoughts are rubbish, just complete garbage. Uh, not very useful at all. Usually not true even. They're just biased perceptions and ideas, and it seems like my brain insists on spewing those kind of things out. And to the extent that I get caught up in them, that's pretty much to the extent to which I suffer. So this shamatha practice where we're using the mind as the object is really powerful. It's powerful because we can do what we've done before, cultivate relaxation, focus, and clarity. But it's also powerful because we can now start to shift the relationship uh, to those thoughts and emotions and impulses and so on, which gives us a vaster sense of freedom and um, spaciousness and openness in our experience. And so one term for doing that is this is, I think it's from Zen Buddhism, where they talk about taking the backward step, and I really like that. So this is what we're going to do in this practice. We take that step backward and we start just looking at all the stuff that's going on in our mind. So kind of like, in a sense, like sitting in a theater. So imagine you're sat in the audience and there's this stage, and on the stage actors and props and stuff appear, but we're observing that we're not involved in it. We're not up on the stage trying to tell people what to say and not. We're just sitting in the audience watching whatever's happening on the stage. Or another metaphor would be lying on your back, staring up into a vast blue sky, and then there's some clouds coming and going, forming, and they stay for a while, and then they fade out or move along. So, and of course, the actors and the props in that metaphor and the clouds in the other metaphor, that's our thoughts. and we're cultivating this ability to just watch them um, neutrally, without judging, without trying to solidify or grasp onto or push anything away. We're just watching. And like I said, so thoughts, when I say that, that's like all conceptual activity, including emotions and memories and mental images. And this is a shamatha practice because we are still cultivating a calm and clear and focused mind, but we're now using, instead of using the breath as the object, we're using whatever happens to appear in the mind. So a thought comes, we pay attention to it, and then it fades away. And the idea is to not get caught up in these thoughts or emotions or whatever it is, not get kidnapped by them. And when we do that, we stop feeding into our mental habits of, we all have these stories we've been telling ourselves for years, and they pop up every now and then, and it's just repetitive, and so that story is connected to a certain set of emotions, and then those emotions feed back into the story, and it's just like this habitual, I like this habit energy that just keeps on going. And by taking this backward step, we allow the mind to become more naturally quiet and still. So one what do you call it, label, or one name for this practice that we're going to do is also resting the mind in its natural state. So to use another metaphor, if you might be very familiar with this one, but so imagine if you have a glass of water or something that has some pollutants in it, and we want to clear the water, and one way would be, you get a little spoon or something, you start mucking about and trying to get things out, and doing that, you just make a mess of everything in the, there's just pollution whirling around everywhere, the muck or the dirt or whatever it is. But another better strategy would be to set that glass down and then just observe as those pollutants or that dirt just settles slowly at the bottom, and the water becomes clear, not because we're trying to fix it, but because we're not. We're now just washing as everything settles, and then the clarity and stillness and everything arises from that. So it's also not trying to suppress anything, not trying to think anything in particular. I mean, there are practices where we're cultivating, certain, like in insight meditation, we're actually trying to cultivate certain thoughts and analyze things and so on and so forth. But that's not what we're doing here. We're just not suppressing anything. We're just allowing whatever wants to arise. And in that process, there is also a natural healing, and things can come up and self liberate and just release, not because we try to fix them, not we try to cultivate the antidote or anything like that. We're just allowing the mind to come to its natural state. And by doing that, we can become, I guess you can call it, masters of our own minds. So in the sense that thoughts and emotions will have less power to harm us, and also this can then become a bridge into vipassana or insight practice, when we've cultivated this ability to just observe the mind and allow it to come to, whatever degree of rest and clarity. That is the degree to which we can then successfully penetrate things with insight and analyze things clearly and cultivate thoughts that are wholesome, and so on and so forth. So it's um, so that is the benefit of this practice. It's like honing. I don't know. If we were astronomers, we would want to have the best possible telescope. Um, and we want that telescope to be placed in a way that's, stable and sturdy. So when we look through it, it has this high magnifying resolution. There's this clarity and it's really stable, and we can look at the stars and the galaxies and whatever astronomers look at. So shamatha practice is analogous. I'm I'm not going to try to pronounce that word, I realize, but it's the same kind of thing, but for the mind. So we're honing the instrument that we need to cultivate wisdom, which is the mind. So that's the purpose of shamatha meditation. All right. So yeah, that was a bit of an introduction, but I thought um, we I have a lot more that I could say and will say, but I thought we could just go into doing a practice of settling the mind in its natural state, or yeah, just taking the mind, thoughts, and emotions as the object of our practice. It's one thing I mean, it's hard enough to do to remain in that position of actually observing what's going on. That's hard enough when you're sitting on your cushion and Um, there might be it's enough with some construction work outside and anger erupts anyway. So it's, but at least those are uh, more ideal conditions. And if you look at all the meditation, like the traditional texts, they all say, you need to go off into the forest and remove all distractions and stay in a cave, basically. And there you can cultivate your shamatha until you're ready to come back out and actually interact with people again and all of that. So it's tremendously challenging to remain in that position of actually observing anger, for example, as it arises, and actually observing the story that's always like the conceptual, elaborate narrative that always like explodes together with, or probably prior to that anger, and just seeing all of it. That's very, very, very tricky. But I guess that's why it's called practice. You start in really conducive uh, contexts, and then cultivate this ability of paying attention, and then hopefully we have access to it when the proverbial shit hits the fan. But not always, but every time we do, that's a huge win. And even having these like little islands of mindfulness or awareness throughout the day, that's huge. And then integrating our practice into daily life, then hopefully those little islands can become more and more continuous. Um, yeah, yeah. So that's at least what these practices are designed for. So hopefully they will be helpful. Um, yeah, I was saying that I was just reminded of a story of this is a teacher named Lama Karma, and I don't know if sometimes I don't know if these types of stories are useful or just uh, they're just illustrating something that is so far beyond our uh, current situation that they just become like almost disheartening because they're so seems so out of reach. But I'll share it anyways. And so this was a rare occasion of uh, like a Tibetan master actually sharing something of their own experience, which is quite rare. You ask them and they always say, no, no, I have no realizations. I know nothing. I'm just a beginner. Um, but Lama Karma actually shared his experience of shamatha. So he started doing many years in retreat under the guidance of his teacher to cultivate this unbroken awareness. So being constantly aware of the contents of the mind and so forth. So having an unbroken awareness. So there's like no autopilot. It's always there's always an aware presence in one's experience. And apparently he pretty much managed to achieve that. But then so his teacher had him working in like something like the Tibetan archives or library, something like that. So he basically worked as a librarian with the instruction to do the same thing here, to become or cultivate this unbroken awareness, but now in everyday life and just practical activities. So no longer in retreat, but just living life as a normal person, basically. And then took a few years, and then Lama Karma achieved this, so he could stay in the state of unbroken awareness, doing his everyday things. So then his teacher told him to do the same thing in sleep. So uh, we many people had the experience of being aware of dreams, so like lucidly becoming aware of no, I'm actually dreaming. But that could be with shamatha, that can be cultivated to a level where you're aware of all your dreams, you're aware of even dreamless sleep, and you can be aware of falling asleep, going into dreams, and so on. So you can remain this unbroken awareness even though you're now asleep. So so this was like the final challenge to Lama Karma from his teachers to cultivate this unbroken awareness also when sleeping. So that there's this unbroken shamatha throughout the entirety of life. And 100%, if you reach that, then anger won't be a problem anymore. Even if you haven't eradicated from the mind the tendencies of anger, even if anger arises and so on, it's completely diffused. It's like having, if you have a say you have a virus, then that virus can make you sick, or it can spread to others and make them sick. But if you have the virus in a vial, so then now you can observe it's the same, still the same virus, but it's now inside, contained within a vial, and you're just observing it, you're just watching it. So it's kind of like that so anger might still arise, it might still be there, but it completely loses the power over the mind. Um, so yeah, so I don't know if that's the Lama Karma or the Lama Karma story is a helpful one, but it illustrates, and this is like a recent first person testimony of the power of shamatha if it's cultivated to the nth degree. All right, so with that, um, well, hopefully inspiring story, we can let's see if we can do some actual meditation and start the work of taking that step or that backward step and watching our minds from a position of being a neutral observer. So, like always, start by finding that comfortable position, sitting in a way that allows the chest to be open, and the breathing to follow its natural rhythm. So we are allowing first of all, the body to rest in its natural state. Initially, it can be really good to allow the attention to drop down into the body and just rest the awareness of the movement of the breathing, following the rhythm of the breath. And then just allowing your attention, your awareness to become broad and open, panoramic. So, for example, imagining your mind to be like that clear blue open sky, and paying attention to everything that arises in that sky. The clouds that appear and stay for a while and then dissolve. Noticing thoughts as thoughts. So in Buddhist psychology, this is the sixth mode of perception, mental perception. So we are observing everything that just arises in the space of the mind. And if you're uncertain as to where you should be looking in a metaphorical sense, then you can just generate any random thought. So generate the thought, Mary had a little lamb, or any other. So intentionally generate that thought and then watch where it arises. And as it fades away, you just keep watching that space, the space in which that thought arose. Just notice how there's a difference between observing thoughts and memories, emotions. There's a difference between that and being hooked by or kidnapped by or carried away by the thoughts. So if you notice that that has happened, then do the same thing you did with the breath. You take a moment to just relax. Then you release that thought and you return your attention to the space of awareness and regain that position of neutral observer. And it's also good to emphasize the qualities of curiosity and warmth and openness. So we're taking a very keen interest in our thoughts, but without grasping, without rejection, just observing with interest and curiosity. And one image that I really like for this is the image of an old lady or an old man sitting on a bench and they're watching a playground over yonder. So they're watching the children playing, maybe fighting, all this commotion. So they're watching with keen interest. They're paying full attention, but they're not getting involved. They're not trying to change or fix anything. They're not taking sides. But their hearts are filled with warmth and care as they sit there on their bench watching. So see if you can watch or pay attention to your own thoughts, like that old man or that old woman. And if you notice it gets confusing, if you're kind of losing the plot, then you can always return your attention to the breathing. So just following a few breaths as a way of grounding yourself, bringing your attention back. Perhaps like before, emphasizing the out breath, releasing, relaxing. And then as your attention is stabilized somewhat on the breath, and again, you can open up and pay attention to the entire field of mental events, this entire space of awareness, and all the activities of the mind. Then finally, towards the end of this practice, just completely release all effort, just allowing yourself to rest in your immediate experience, no agenda, just releasing everything and resting for a while. And then with that, we can end this meditation. And bring our awareness back to each other and the session. All right. I am just going to walk over there and turn on the air conditioning because this room is getting a bit hot. Yeah, as you are moving into spring and summer, we're at the very tail end of summer and moving into fall here, but it's still some hot days. Whatever's going on in the mind is. So, for example, if I hear a sound from outside, then um, I can I can look at that and see that, yeah, this is not my sound. It doesn't necessarily belong to me. It's just, it just arises in the mind due to certain conditions and causes and conditions coming together. There might be a dog barking outside, and I got ears and auditory cortex, and I got ear consciousness, and so on. And these things come together, and then here's the experience of sound in my mind. But the moment I do so, the Buddha said that all suffering comes from seeing as me, um, me or mine, things that aren't me or mine. So the moment that I see the sound, it's like somehow my sound, and I start to project all sorts of meaning onto it, and this off the story goes, and maybe I'm now upset with the dog or whatever's going on. Then I'm in trouble. But the same thing is actually true for thoughts. So we can, just like sounds appear in the mind, thoughts appear in the mind, and they appear from various causes and conditions, karma and habituation, and even having a brain and whatnot, and having mental consciousness. And so, and some thoughts we're kind of responsible for thinking, or you can, like I said, Mary had a little lamb, I can generate that thought, and then it feels more like something I'm doing. But most of the thoughts aren't like that. They just pop up like thought bubbles, maybe, or whatever, like clouds in the sky, and they're just there because of causes and conditions. And I don't have to view them as mine. They're just no more than the clouds in the sky are mine. I can just observe them. So, interesting. They arose from causes and conditions. Here they are. They stay for a while, and then they dissolve back into wherever. So it can be really, really powerful to stop identifying with all the stuff that just randomly appears in the mind. Um, and that doesn't mean, we shouldn't care, or we shouldn't, which is, also why I try to emphasize this these qualities of curiosity and openness and warmth. And we can still have a loving, compassionate, caring relationship to all these thoughts that appear. But it's like the grasping and the making solid of, and taking possession of those thoughts, that's problematic. So this practice is counteracting these tendencies, which are just harming us and creating so much suffering for us. So hopefully, as you continue doing these types of practices, you can see if you can really notice that tendency of reification or grasping or pushing away, because that's what the problem is. It's not thoughts arising, it's not emotions arising. That's 100% unproblematic if we don't. It's when we get involved and we start spinning our stories and solidifying things. That's when we're in trouble. Um, all right. So yeah, I thought for
Martin, before you go on, just
yeah.
want to point out that Mary Beth put a comment into,
Oh,
yeah, the chat that I think it's important to note.
yeah. Thank you for pointing it out. I'm paying zero attention to the chat. Unfortunately, so it's really good that you point that out. Uh, yeah. Thank you so much for
Sure.
guidance and teaching, calm abiding is very helpful. Yeah, it's um, all I can say is you know, personally, I find it very helpful, and the the Buddha really, really emphasized shamatha and calm abiding. But sometimes it seems to get a bit lost. We focus on, we're doing our tantric practices, and we're doing our vipassana meditation and our prostrations and whatnot, and uh, all those things are extremely valid practices. But also, all of those things become enhanced the stronger our shamatha is. So the more directed and intentional focus of calm abiding, I think, can be really, really helpful. Yeah.
And I do have a question, which is, I think that all of that I've been doing has helped with this, but I still find myself at times thinking about past incidences so quickly and then like cursing the person, right?
Mm,
It just comes out and I'm like going, oh, come on. But is there any specific practice that helps with that? Because it's like if I could catch myself before the words were uttered, and I'm by myself, I'm just,
mm,
doing it. If I could catch myself, I would, but it's almost like I can't. And I mean, one thing I do that's therapeutic is after I do send a curse, I then go, okay, step back, and then I send good thoughts, right? To try to.
yeah.
So, I mean, that's
Yeah.
the way I manage it. But my question is, what have you found most helpful in preventing the mind from being able to go to those places so quickly? Anything specific?
Yeah. I mean, so um, there is great value in, for example, personally, I've found like just loving kindness meditation to be very helpful. The types of meditation where you cultivate a loving intention towards yourself, a dear one, a stranger, an enemy, and everyone. Those kind of practices. Um, and yeah, so and then just the cultivation of similarly the um, like the four greats, the what's called the Brahma Viharas of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. So these are practices designed to, in a sense, cultivate the antidote to those more negative states of mind. I also found it very helpful to do what we did in the last course, where we looked at mental states and just starting to pay attention to how they interact and how they arise, and so on and so forth. So those, I mean, there's so many things, and even, the practice of things like more preliminary practices like prostrations and recitations of mantras, I find um, are helpful. And even just, the word mantra means mind protection. So even in those situations, reciting a mantra, like just resorting to reciting the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra, something like that, can be really helpful. Um, but having said all that, um, there's also sometimes this tendency that we just want to fix things and get rid of them and be different, um, and we just, yeah, I want to apply the correct antidote, and then we get into this fight with ourselves because we find these thoughts unacceptable, and I don't want to be like this, and how do I get rid of it? So there is also, so what I find to be very powerful with the shamatha practice, and specifically like this, resting the mind in its natural state, where we don't care about what it is. We're just watching it and allowing it to, um, as they say in Dzogchen, to self-liberate. Just allowing, okay, here's the anger, and now it's gone. and everything follows that just progression. Comes, it stays for a while. So just instead of trying to change anything or cultivate anything really, we just release our grasp of these things, and we take that step back um, and just allow for it to be. And one might teachers say we shouldn't make problems out of our problems. So I guess that's, yes, there is anger, but then now we're angry about the anger. Yes, there's fear, but we're fearful about the fear, and we're stressed about the stress, and that kind of tendency. So the benefit of this practice, which I find very powerful, is to just um, let go of things and allow them to play themselves out without making a big deal of it. Um, and with the shamatha practice, the more we do this, the sooner we can kind of catch. If we can catch that impulse of anger, for example, when it's just a tiny, tiny seed about to, sprout or bear fruit, and you know, if we can catch it there and just watch it, then usually it's not like we're fixing it. It's just kind of it loses its energy somehow. But then, and or if we get really upset, but now we're about to throw a plate in someone's head or whatever, if we can catch ourselves there and just stop, then that's very powerful. So, but the more we practice, the sooner we can catch that impulse as it arises. So now it's just a little spark in the grass rather than a raging forest fire. Because putting out a raging forest fire is maybe we just have to allow it to burn out because there's no fixing it, there's no stopping at that point. But if we can catch it earlier, then yeah, there's more freedom there. So I think, so distilling that into some kind of pith instruction would be just to stop. Stopping is very powerful, and that's what we're doing here. Uh, Stopping and watching. So actually, that's been for me. That's been like a mantra sometimes. Like, okay, here's a new drama developing in my mind. So, okay, just stop. And to fix anything, and just stop and watch. So yeah, not that was a bit of rambling. I don't know if there's anything
No, 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 it's
helpful in all of
helpful.
that.
Yeah, no, no, it is helpful. Thank you for
Okay,
sharing.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's reassuring. Um, okay, so I always seem to I have less time available than I imagined, but I wanted to just quote a few lines from. So this is a text by, I think it's a 19th century master. His name is Lara Blinkpa. So it was the Dzogchen Tibetan master. But so this is uh, writing some of his on this practice of resting the mind in its natural state, or just observing the mind like we just did. So I thought I would just read a few of those lines, and just use that to give some commentary and some advice, I guess, on this practice. So the first thing he writes is, with your body and mind inwardly relaxed, and without allowing the continuum of your consciousness to fade from a state of limpidity and vivid clarity, sustain it naturally and radiantly. So, so this is exactly that instruction on having a basis of relaxation, um, uh, for stability and vividness, and never sacrificing relaxation, and realizing that relaxation is always the foundation. So if we if we find ourselves agitated, or then always returning to relaxation and releasing and letting go. And from that bodily and mental ease, that's how stability naturally deepens without it being effortful. So we can allow it to be more effortless. And then that stillness is what reveals vividness, when awareness becomes more naturally clear and bright, maybe you could say. And then this, I guess the word limpidity is not, I'm not a native speaker, but not a very common one, I guess. But here, I guess it refers to the mind's innate, you might call it transparency and luminosity. So the point being that the clarity and radiance are intrinsic qualities of awareness. They're not something we're creating through meditation. So we're actually uncovering the natural radiance and luminosity of the mind through this practice. We're uncovering, not generating, this natural stillness and vividness of the mind, which is why relaxation is so powerful. Um, so one of my teachers, Alan Wallace, he once commented that the path to full enlightenment is a path of deeper and deeper relaxation. So uh, we can relax more and more, and when we relax completely and fully, and that's when we're a Buddha. But then that's when we've released and let go of everything, and we're completely resting in the natural luminosity and clarity of our minds. That's the ultimate relaxation. So I've always found that really inspiring, because I certainly have a tendency to strive and tense up and try to achieve things, even dharmic things. So that idea of just releasing and relaxing ever more deeply is I find it very appealing. Um, and then Lara Blinkpa continues: do not clutter your mind with many critical judgments. Do not take short-sighted view of meditation, and avoid great hopes and fears that your meditation will turn out one way and not another. So it can be, I mean, of course, we're all striving for enlightenment, and we're told that intention and motivation is really, really important. And there are wholesome desires, the desire for awakening and the desire to develop bodhicitta and so on. But too much yearning and striving in meditation can be really counterproductive. And the motivation, it's more helpful between sessions. So that's when we can use it to inspire diligence and motivate us, and we get super excited about awakening and bodhicitta and all those things. But during actual meditation, it's really good if we can just completely let go of all hopes, desires, fears, and just be present. So that's not the time to be, you know, striving necessarily. And also, don't expect meditation to be a quick fix, and also never judge meditation by how good it feels in the moment. So we're not doing it to relax or to feel a certain way. It is Meditation is a long-term path to sanity. It's not a short-term mood booster. That's not the purpose of meditation. So patience and perseverance are essential for genuine progress. Our view should be long-term and vast. And as we sit down to meditate, the more we can just release and relax into our actual experience, the better. Um, and then he continues: at the beginning, have many daily sessions, each of them of brief duration, and focus well in each one. Whenever you meditate, bear in mind the phrase without distraction and without grasping, and put this into practice. So, yeah, so the idea here is to, emphasizing quality over quantity, I guess. So in the beginning, if we can do 2 minutes of relaxed and stable vividness, then fantastic. We do 2 minutes, and then maybe we can do 10 minutes, and if we make it our full-time career, then we can do 4 hours or 3 years. Who knows? But we start with like little short sessions that we really pay full attention to and give our whole being. And then this core pith instruction of without distraction and without grasping, um, that is kind of what I was talking about before. So not getting carried away by thoughts or sensory impressions or whatever it is, and also not trying to cling on to or control any mental appearances, avoiding any type of preference or identification. So one analogy here is to be like what are they called? Like a kestrel, like I guess they're what are they like tiny falcons or something, but they're known for being able to just hover immovably. They stay like steady high up in the air, and they're not thrown about by the winds. They're just hovering up there steadily, just observing and watching. So that's what we want our mindfulness to be like. Um, and we also want it to be like the sky, so completely open and unaffected by whatever moves through it. So that's what it means to be aware of thoughts and emotions, sensations without like being abducted by them, without being attached to them. And then each moment of distraction, each moment of grasping onto things, that's fundamentally um, a loss of awareness from the perspective of being an observer, and it's a falling back into that dualistic mind. Um, so it's yeah, so um, that's what he's referring to here specifically with that instruction of without distraction or without grasping. Oh, I wonder if I'm gonna get through this. We'll see. I have a few more verses. All right, so he continues. As you gradually familiarize yourself with the meditation, increase the duration of your sessions. If dullness sets in, arouse your awareness. If there is excessive scattering and excitation, loosen up. Determine in terms of your own experience the optimal degree of mental arousal, as well as the healthiest diet and behavior. Excessive imprisoning constriction of the mind, loss of clarity due to lassitude, and excessive relaxation resulting in involuntary vocalization and eye movements are to be avoided. Gosh, I don't know about the involuntary vocalization. I don't think I've had that happen to me, but I guess like the fidgeting and um, the loss of uh, like the loss of focus that can come from the wrong type of relaxation, I guess is what it's referring to. But also, like we said before, using introspection to detect laxity or dullness as it arises, to detect excitation and agitation as it arises, and then um, yeah, again, then emphasizing this backward step or doing the things that are necessary to return to that position of being an observer without forcefully trying to constrict the mind, if we're agitated, we don't try to like control or constrict or force it to be a certain way. Instead, we relax, um, which actually that reminds me of someone, or I read a book once where it said they had the term controlling by observing. And I remember that was very powerful for me at the time because I was certainly trying to control by controlling, not just. But what I found is that sometimes you can control things by doing the opposite and just stepping back and watching, much more, much nicer than just trying to fix by fixing. Yeah. So again, allowing stability to rise from a relaxed, at ease mind, just more of a, almost like a let go attitude, um, almost like it really doesn't matter that much type of attitude, not a tense attitude. Well, and then at the same time, avoiding excessive slackness, which can just lead to dullness. So it's a bit of a balance, I guess. All right, and then I have the final verse that I just wanted to share, which is the following. Let the heart of your practice be consciousness in its natural state, limpid and vivid, acting as your own mentor. If you can bring the essential points to perfection, as if you were threading a needle, the afflictions of your own mind stream will subside. You will gain the autonomy of not succumbing to them, and your mind will constantly be calm and dispassionate. This is a sound basis for the arising of all states of meditative concentration on the stages of generation and completion. This is like tilling the soil of a field. So from the outset, avoid making a lot of great, exalted, and pointless proclamations. Rather, it is crucial to do all you can to refine your mind and establish a foundation for contemplative practice. So, yeah, I guess the one interesting thing in this verse is uh, acting as your own mentor. So the the true teacher, the true guru, the true guide is actually already within us. It is the innermost potential of our minds. It is the true nature, which is our Buddha nature, our clear light mind. That is the ultimate teacher, and that's what we're in any Buddhist practice. That's what we're ultimately uncovering or tuning into or discovering. So that's, and I find that to be very inspiring. That okay, I'm just sitting here and I'm relaxing ever deeper. I'm just observing what's arising, and at the you know like suffusing all of that is my own innermost potential. So it's like slowly washing dirt off a mirror or something that potential can slowly start to shine through. And it's not like I'm creating it or um, any of that. It's just it's already there, and I'm just allowing it to shine forth. So rather than this being a process of cultivation or building up or acquiring or any of that. It's more a process of releasing, letting go, deconstructing, and yeah, like I said, maybe letting things settle, like in the analogy of the glass with dirt in it. So yeah, so as we cultivate this ability to rest in the mind and in its natural state, that's the extent to which we can see reality ever more clearly. And that is the foundation for for developing true wisdom, true compassion. So that's where, if you ever wonder why you should sit down and watch the breath at your nostrils, that would kind of be the point, I guess. uh, yeah. Right. I had other things that I thought I'd get to, but I think that'll Lara Blinkba quote and some comments on it brings us to end of this session. So I think maybe that's it for this session, and hopefully I will see you for the last session next week. And I wish everyone a lovely time until then. And yeah, if you try to remember to do this in everyday life, there's so many opportunities to just stop and take that step back and just observe what's going on. Um, a bit dispassionately, but still with curiosity and warmth. So um, yeah, give that a go, and I'll see you next week.